Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Shelby Tuck Horton, Vice President of Education. Today, I'm so delighted to introduce you to Anansia Leslie-Bailey. She's a relationship therapist, wedding industry mental health consultant, and founder and clinical director of I Do Therapy. She specializes in premarital counseling and mental health education for wedding professionals. And we all know we need mental health education. Anansia is also a doctoral student in counselor education and supervision at Oregon State University. So I am going to put myself on mute and turn it over to Anansia.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Shelby and ABC, for having me present on this topic. This is one that is really dear to my heart. And I'm just really hoping that you all will take away something from today. I'm going to take you on a journey, essentially, because we're talking about intersectionality and identity and how we're going to be able to support diverse couples during the wedding planning process. So Shelby did a wonderful job with the introduction there, so I don't have to go into too much details. However, I did switch the school I'm going to now because I got into one of them that I actually wanted to. So I'm not going to Oregon State no more. I'm going to Barry University in Miami. Okay. Yeah, so that's what's changing, but everything else, I'm a registered psychotherapist. The location right now, I'm living in Toronto. But yes, as she mentioned, I do a lot of supports with wedding pros, premarital counseling work, and generational trauma, cultural responsive care. All right, so why is this conversation important? Why does it matter? So the wedding is more than just the event. It brings up the emotional components, the cultural, relational components, identity-driven experiences. So you all are really firsthand witnesses in real time as to what these couples are experiencing. So they're experiencing family expectation, financial barriers, they're going through, religious values and relational stress. So it's really important for us to pull back those layers to provide a unique and dynamic experience for these couples that we are working with. But before we can do that, you have to understand what it even means to be diverse. And the layer of that is intersectionality. So I'm going to provide you the definition of what that is. It is a way of looking at the world that recognizing that people's experiences, they are shaped by a combination of social factors, which include your gender, your racialization, age, and other things. And these experiences occur within and interact with connected systems and structures of power, such as sexism and racism. So intersectionality, it was created by Kimberly Crenshaw, and that was in the late 1980s. So it was a different form of oppression where she looked at regarding racism and sexism, and they don't operate independently, but they interact and compound with one another. So essentially, we're going to be looking at, let's say for myself and my identities, when I walk in the room, the first thing I am, and people may see, I'm a Black person. I'm also a woman. That is two identities that are intersecting. All the other components in terms of social economic status is intersection, culture, that's all embedded into who I am and how I navigate the systems around me. And I'm not even just talking about the wedding industry, but just in general as well. You're all navigating systems and how you're going to approach them. But with wedding planning, that does not happen outside of identity. So your couples are coming in with these intersections. How are you appropriately addressing those intersections? So the first example I have here, a Black couple and emotional expression in wedding planning. So what could potentially be happening? So a Black bride, they're advocating strongly for her vision or expressing frustration during the planning process, and that may be perceived as being aggressive, difficult, or intimidating. while another bride is displaying the same behavior, but they're viewed as passionate or detailed oriented. So, what are the parts that are intersecting here? That's a reflection on racial and gender stereotypes. So, as a Black woman, you get a lot of the terminology when you're being, firm about boundaries or you're expressing yourself. You hear, you're being aggressive. You're intimidating. You get that language quite often. But also as a woman, you're trying to navigate that space. So the same thing is going on with the couple. An immigrant couple and language biases. And I purposely chose this picture. And I'm going to talk about this picture here quickly because people automatically have biases when they think about immigrants. But immigrants, it truly just means this person is not born within this country, but they can look like a walk of different people all over the world. So I was not going to put a certain person or culture here. I just put a picture of a passport because I don't know what an immigrant is supposed to look like. Now, this story here, an immigrant couple or family member who speaks English as a second language may be perceived as difficult to communicate with or confusing during the planning process. Their accents or communication style may be unintentionally leading vendors to become less patient, dismissive, or make assumptions about understanding and professionalism. So this reflects the intersection of xenophobia, accent bias, cultural assumptions, which can impact whether the couple feels respected, heard, and emotionally safe during the process. Another example, an Indigenous couple and the performative inclusivity, which the wedding industry at times, this can really be a big part in how we navigate the system because I'm seeing it. People will plaster, the language, but are you truly providing those actions? So an Indigenous couple may be featured in a wedding marketing material or publicly celebrated for diversity, yet the cultural traditions and voices or perspectives are not meaningfully included or understood during the planning process, and their traditions may be treated as symbolic additions rather than respected as cultural significant practices. So I know in different cultures, people use sage, right? Now, I used to live in the Northwest Territories in Yellowknife. I just moved maybe a few weeks ago. So we call our people here Indigenous peoples, and in the States, you guys call them Native Americans in different areas. Now, other cultures, they'll have the practice of sage and they'll try to incorporate that. Within the indigenous uh, peoples in the Northwest Territory specifically, they call that smudging. And they would potentially have smudging a part of that. And it's very meaningful when they're incorporating it. So they're taking the sage and they're purposely smudging their eyes to see clarity. They're smudging their head to make sure that they can think clearly, their ears, so they can listen intently. So there's purpose behind this. But what happens is that people will just take something and throw it out there as just, oh, an addition for symbolic practices instead of just really seeing the significance of it. So what can happen here too is tokenism. So where inclusion is more performative than relational, giving visibility without truly creating space for cultural understanding, respect, and shared decision making. An LGBTQIA plus couple and emotional safety in wedding planning. And I'm sure people have seen on websites, they'll plaster the rainbow flag on the website, but are you truly including and having inclusionary practices within the planning process? So here you'll see an LGBTQIA plus couple may encounter subtle heteronormative assumptions throughout the planning process, being asked, who's the bride, who's the groom? That may not apply, right? Or feeling unsure whether vendors genuinely affirm the relationship. Or there might be comments framed as jokes, discomfort around pronouns, or lack of inclusive spaces, which can make couples feel emotionally unsafe, unseen, or hesitant to fully express themselves. This is a reflection of heterosexism and gender-based assumptions, which can impact couples' emotional comfort, trust, and ability to advocate for their needs during this vulnerable time. couple with a disability, and wedding accessibility. So a couple or a family member with a disability may be requesting accessibility accommodations during their wedding planning, such as wheelchair, accessible venues, sensory-friendly spaces, flexible timelines, or mobility support, but these requests may be viewed as too complicated or too much extra work. And this can reflect ableism and can impact the participation, comfort, dignity, and emotional safety. And we have to be mindful, there are hidden visibilities too. So when I talk about disabilities, I'm not talking about somebody that you can physically also see, but neurodivergence, right? That is a hot topic all of a sudden. But do we really understand the meaning behind that? What does that look like? If somebody is, you know, struggling with ADHD, how are you going to be supportive, ensuring that they feel comfortable, they have accessibility to make the planning process a little bit more smooth? So really going back to the definitions of the terms, and are you truly implementing it to ensure that the process is as authentic and smooth as possible? And the last example here, Muslim couples and religious assumptions in wedding planning. So a Muslim couple may enter the wedding planning process concerned about whether their religious values and traditions will be respected. And these assumptions may be made about the gender roles, music, alcohol, dress, or family dynamics without first asking the couple about their personal preferences and beliefs. So I'm sure people automatically have heard about, different practices within the Muslim community, and they have their own biases, and they may end up portraying or protruding that onto the couple, and that may not necessarily be what they want for themselves. You got to be open, reflective, and asking those questions clearly. Now, what is really intersecting here is the religious bias and the cultural assumptions, which once again impact the emotional safety and inclusivity in the wedding industry. So now we're going to get into activity, because in order for us to really address diversity, we need to understand ourselves and our biases. Because I can teach you everything, but if you don't know what you are biased to and how you intersect yourself, that is going to be hard to address and make changes to ensure that this process is smooth. So I encourage you to look at this wheel, and I want you to fill out for yourself how you identify. So you're looking at each one of these categories. Looking at race, you'll put down what your race is. So for me, I'm Black. Ethnicity, you're going to put that down. Social economic status, you're going to put that down. Gender pronouns. Um, there's one there that's sexual orientation, age, so looking at the whole entire wheel. There's even one about location, your geographical location, that matters. So for myself, example, I'm a US and Canadian citizen. I navigate the spaces completely different when I cross the border, right? Especially the climate that's going on. When I go to the States, I do have to bring extra documentation now, even though I'm a citizen, I still bring my birth certificate, right? As a Black woman, that's also another thing that I'm, concerned about, right? How are people going to perceive me when I walk into a networking space? They see Black first, then they might say, okay, she's woman. Then social economic status. Are you middle class? Are you lower class? Okay, are you going to be able to attend certain conferences because, you may not have the funding to be able to do so? Um, and then so on and so forth, so forth. Are you switching your languages depending on where you're from? So take the time to go through this. I'm going to give about 3 minutes, let's say, for you to complete it. And then afterwards, we're going to go into a question where I just ask like one person, one or two people to kind of talk about their experience and share. If you have any questions, just also let me know. Okay. One of the question, what is it asking about family? So how you identify as a family? So are you a mother? Are you a sister? Um, Are you a father? Whatever it is that you feel are, and you can even go deeper. Are you the second child, the middle child? Are you the last child? Those experiences are going to shape you and be a little bit different. Yes, yes, the role inside the family. And an example of that too, let's say you're a mother and you have a business, you purposely decide to switch your hours because you work during the day so that way you can go home and pick up your child. So that's going to impact the way that you navigate the planning process for the couples too, right? So everything is intersecting and creating a system. All right. So I hope I gave people enough time. You can continue to fill it out afterwards, but you just kind of get an understanding of what we're looking at. So here are some questions that, I would love if somebody wants to kind of chime in and provide, their reflection. Um, but you can answer one of these questions. So the first one is, which aspects of your identity do you feel you have to hide or downplay as a wedding pro? The second question is, in what ways does your identity afford you privilege or create barriers in the wedding industry? And the third is, has the wedding industry acknowledged or created space for intersectional experiences? So if anybody wants to chime in and talk about their experience and what they think. All right, somebody said in the chat, I never downplay who I am. All right, beautiful. Now I'm curious to know, because some people they feel really comfortable to not downplay who they are. But there's something that got you to that point to not downplay who you are, right? So I don't know if you wanna share, but
Everybody's quiet today.
no. Anybody want to share? Okay. I want to be honest, not advertise something. Oh, see important. Okay. I want to be honest, not advertise something and not have it on the shelf. Okay. Awesome. And then Tiana, I don't downplay who I am, but I feel like being Black, all eyes are always on me when I walk into the room. I feel strange, like maybe I don't fit into their space. Yeah, right? So I think that, there's people in this room that they feel confident with who they are, right? You know that, let's say my example, I'm a Black woman. I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling good. I love being Black. I'm great. But then when you do walk into a space, and let's say it's a networking space, you're so aware of your identity and you're wondering, am I going to feel comfortable? Am I going to feel accepted into this space? Are people going to be receptive of who I am? What happens too, and I encourage you all to try this. When you go into a networking space, who do you usually gravitate towards? Okay. I know for myself, I'm kind of guilty. In the past, I know I used to gravitate towards people that I feel may end up have similarities with me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right. Okay. I see another person. I'm a proud Puerto Rican bilingual queen. I know that's right. My clients love it. I also learned some words in the language of my clients to surprise them. Beautiful. So you are acknowledging the intersections of your clients. You know that, yes, they have different languages, and you're trying to incorporate that to show them that you're hearing them and you're seeing them. So that's wonderful. But going back to my point too, you know, seeing who you navigate or gravitate towards mostly when you're entering the networking space and talking with other professionals, you usually go towards people that you feel maybe aligned with you or have similarities, and then you may end up branching out. But reflecting on why that does happen, what is leading you to do that? Someone says, in the beginning of my career, I had to downplay my sexuality. That was 20 years ago. Yes, things have changed drastically. So I can't even imagine. But today, laugh aloud, good luck because I let you know in the door. Good. Let them know. All right. And then, sorry, it was Saminta, right? I'm hoping I'm saying your name right, but thank you for sharing that. Michelle, I am LGBTQ. I advertise it because the generation feels safe around me. Even my straight clients feel that family and friends feel safe around me, and the vendors, I stare them too. Beautiful. And then Tiana, she's chiming in again. I honestly go towards people who are Black
Who are Black.
and I allow everyone else to approach me. All right. So there is a level of like for the approaching somebody, the comfortability that you feel you're trying to go towards somebody that you feel safe. Now imagine how the couples are coming in. So the fact that they already, contacted you means that they vetted so many people. They're seeing that there's something about you that makes them feel safe. Now, for them to continue to book you is that extra layer. So the initiative, I forgot who was it with the language of my Puerto Rican queen. iPhone, I don't know your name. But the Puerto Rican queen, where she mentioned that she surprises us with language, that's an extra for you to say yes, like they're going to feel comfortable and seen with you. So they're going to want to continue working, right? Okay, I'm going to take a few more and then we're going to move forward here. And then I hope I didn't miss anything. So Cherie, my saying I don't downplay is not to give off arrogant vibes. Not at all. Not at all. But I am who I am and I cannot change that. I am a diverse individual and happy to work with and incorporate dreams, desires, culture, and choices with respect and professionalism for clients choosing me to share their events. Beautiful. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, right? Because other people, especially reading, they can take it off as being arrogant, but I didn't take it that way. I want to make sure you know, but I'm glad that you kind of expressed that too. And then inspirami, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Correct me if I am saying it wrong though. It took me time to feel confident in the space I enter because it was taking up too much of my energy and peace on what others may think. When I first started my business, I never shared a photo. Oop, I never shared a photo of me, but now sharing my photo is a staple so people can take me at face value. Okay, there we go. And your name is Jacqueline Vasquez. Thank you so much for sharing that. You see how people show up in their own businesses initially especially when you first start out, just a simple thing of hiding your photos is a direct reflection of how the systems are because you're just not hiding your photos just because. You're hiding it because of your experiences that you have encountered over time of acceptance, right? Are people going to accept you for who you are? All right, so I'm gonna thank you everybody for sharing. I'm gonna continue on here and then I'll come back into the chat afterwards. But yeah, that was incredible to hear these stories. So, how our stories shape the way we show up at work. So there's different parts of who we are. So our race, gender, culture, upbringing, personal experiences all influence the way we show up professionally and interact with our couples. So example here, if you are the perfectionist, that can equal you being fearful of making a mistake. This is coming from most times the childhood experiences. So you grew up with high expectations or very critical parents or caregivers, which led you now to need to consistently strive for perfection in work or to avoid criticism. So now you're going to be doing so much and being, particular in everything that you do, and everything here is leading to burnout on top of that. Okay. But you just don't end up being a perfectionist because it's something has happened in the past to get you to that place. Then there's a person who, is overly responsible, right? The caregiver role in childhood. So sometimes I see this often where the person was the eldest child, they took on that caregiver role. And now in this role, they're being responsible, where they're trying to fix a situation all the time, right? They're the fixer, the rescuer. I know everything. I'm going to make sure that everything gets done. And I want to, figure out the family dynamics and all that. And there's nothing wrong with these qualities, but we got to know how we're coping with them and how we're going to set appropriate boundaries so we don't go and burn out. And then we also are providing a positive experience for our couples. So difficulty with authority, which is equaling to the lack of trust in relationship. So wedding professionals, if you grew up in an environment where authority figures were controlling, unpredictable, or emotionally unsafe, you may struggle with trust, collaboration, or hierarchy within the wedding professional spaces. Then there's overachieving, validation seeking. So in childhood, if you accomplish something, and there was primary source of validation, that was how you received it. In the wedding industry, there's a constant drive to prove one's worth through high performance. So your calendar is empty, and you're like, I gotta go fill it with something. That's you kind of seeking validation. You're feeling like I need to just get this drive. I need to do something because I feel like I'm not doing enough. How do I receive what I'm looking for? And sometimes you hit the ceiling and it's still not there. All right. So we got to really take a step back and wondering, well, where is this coming from? How can I address it? How can I ensure that I'm not, adding on too much onto my plate so I can provide good service? Hyper independence, so fear of dependency. You're raised in an environment where self-sufficiency was emphasized, leading to difficulty asking for help or relying on colleagues at work. And then there's difficulty saying no or a fear of disappointment. So professionals who grew up responsible for keeping others happy or avoiding disappointment, you may struggle with setting boundaries. So all the time people are like, just set boundaries, it's okay, do that. But if you got to know your roots, where is it coming from? It's not so easy to just do, right? How did we get here? And what does even boundary setting look like? So it's not just about saying no. It's what comes after you saying no that people are usually fearful of, right? And why are you fearful of that? Okay. So these identities and life experiences shape one, your boundaries, your communication style, your response to feedback, conflict, and praise. And often what shows up in the wedding industry is rooted in what we learned early about safety, love, and worthiness. So self-awareness allows us to recognize these patterns for ourselves so we can lead and communicate and support these couples more intentionally. So I'm showing you all of this so you can pull out the roots and see what's under there and truly start to make adjustments and those changes so that couples are going to feel connected with you a little bit more. They're going to feel seen and heard. Now let's get into some practical things. So creating emotional safe and inclusive spaces within the wedding industry. So the first things first, we got to acknowledge microaggressions that occur, okay? So they often show up through assumptions, stereotypes, language, tone, lack of representation, and you're dismissing traditions or identities, okay? And what these microaggressions are, there are subtle comments, assumptions of behaviors that create exclusion or emotional discomfort. I know I've had microaggressive um, tones towards me and things said to me, and it does impact you, right? I used to supervise, and I remember people would come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't really feel comfortable telling you because I felt intimidated by you." And I'm like, "Me? I'm intimidated?" But they went to someone else that was a person that wasn't of color to get support. But then that person I found was a little bit more like she was very blunt and straightforward. So I'm like, interesting that for me, someone said that. So I'm sure, all of you have experienced some form of microaggression. So examples of this too, which I've already kind of mentioned with the LGBTQIA plus couple, you're asking, who's the bride and who's the groom? You want to just kind of be open with asking, right? How would you both like to identify during the planning process? That switches things. You're not making an assumption and a bias or, you're really just being so much more informed, right? adding in the trauma informed. It's not trauma, but it's being more informed on how you can be therapeutic. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay. Names and identity. Your name is hard to pronounce. Okay. Or you don't want to end up saying something like that, right? Or you're saying, do you have a nickname instead? That's being dismissive to the person overall. They're deserving of having their name heard, of being seen, and that's just the start. I know when I jumped onto this call, Shelby, she did a wonderful job. She asked me right away. She's like, I really want to get your name right. How do you pronounce your name? I said, great. I love when people do that because then it shows me that you care, right? Now, if you mispronounce it, it is what it is. Like it happens, sometimes it takes a couple times. And I give people a lot of leeway because my name can be very complicated. There's an I in it. I put the phonics there to make it easier. But if I know you're purposely not even trying, then that could be hurtful, right? Now there's appearance and dress safety. So treating Eurocentric beauty standards as the default expectation for professionalism or bridal aesthetics. And this happens often, right? Where you may not see the representation that's there. So I'm going to talk more about this when we get into the branding part of marketing and how that is displayed on websites and other platforms. So this portion here, talking about the visibility and hidden disabilities. So not all disabilities are visible. Some have chronic illnesses, ADHD, as I explained. This here is something that you can, really implement as a strategy. So inclusive planning, it means you asking your couples what supports they need. You're providing clear communication and flexibility. You're considering accessibility beyond physical access. So one conference I went to, they did a beautiful job with this. It was the American Counseling Association conference I went to. Before people arrived, like a week before or 2 weeks before, they sent out a whole list of the accessibility procedures for people that has a disability. And they provided all the resources that they needed, contact information, and it was so well put together. And that shows that you're really taking the initiative to include people into this process. And your language, let's say, people always say, oh, there's handicap parking. No, this is 2026. Let's reframe now, right? Use a more inclusive language by saying we have accessible parking. There's accessibility. There's designated accessibility parking here, right? That can change the tone and really make things more inclusive in how you're seeing this person. You're not trying to think there's something wrong with them, right? There's nothing wrong with them. They're just living with, this hidden or visible disability. Belonging and authenticity and code switching. So this is a result of even the systems that we live in, right? The microaggressions that play a part in the systems and how people can be really dismissive towards others. People end up code switching and, trying to do different things in order to fit into an environment. So they'll adapt parts of themselves in a professional and social space to feel accepted, respected, or emotionally safe. So they'll alter their appearance to be more professional. I know back in the day, maybe about 10 years ago, I don't know if it's still happening now, but I remember in high school when wait, it was not 10 years ago in high school. I don't even want to tell you. When I Google searched on what professional hairstyles looked like, it showed straight hair, and most people on there, they were blonde or, just straight hair. Okay. When I put unprofessional hair, it showed Afrocentric features, the afros and everything that was centered as unprofessional. Just imagine seeing that at a young age. And I'm like, there's something wrong with me. All right. So this is how people end up code switching over time. They're like, in order for me to be professional and I'm going to walk into the space, I have to be looking a certain way. All right. Or you're changing your speech pattern. All right. Because I can tell you right now, this is more than likely a code switch for me because when I'm in my home, I'm Jamaican. We're talking regularly like this. Like I don't talk any other way. I just talk like this, right? But right here, I'm code switching. Should I be doing that? No, I got some work to do. But I'm not perfect, okay? But this does happen often. So the goal is not for couples to adapt to our comfort. The goal is to create the space where couples feel safe enough to be authentic. So, oh, this part here. Some couples may quietly ask, will I be accepted here? Will traditions and all that. So yes, these are just some extra things that couples are going to be asking. Now we get into the branding and representation and company values. Okay. So your website, your branding, your trusted vendors list, your marketing communication, who belongs before couples ever contact you. You're already deciding that. But I really want you to reflect who is represented on your website. So when the couples are first looking at your brand, are they going to see them represented on your website? If you're only showcasing one particular couple, you're going to be excluding others. Is that what you want to do? So there's nothing wrong with niching, okay? But you can niche and have a certain aesthetic, but still include the images of all people to be a part of that niche. You want to ask who is missing? Do your trusted vendors reflect your company's values? So yes, okay, the vendors that I have, they do great work, aesthetically pleasing, they're organized. But did you do the deeper work to know their values? How do they operate? Are they inclusive? Because if you're preaching, I'm all about diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion, and the person that you work with that you've referred to is not, then that's sending mixed messages to the couples. Does your trusted vendors reflect your company's values around inclusivity, respect? Oh, yes, here we go. Are you choosing vendors only because of beautiful work or because they also create safe and affirming experiences for your couples? Okay. So, this part here too, the luxury language and exclusion of it. All the time in this industry, we love to throw around the language luxury. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I want to preface that. There's nothing wrong with using the word luxury, but reflect the same thing that I did when I mentioned the word immigrant. Reflect on who comes to mind when you think of luxury couples and be honest and real with yourself. All right. What weddings do I automatically view as high-end or sophisticated? What traditions or aesthetics have I been conditioned to view as too much or unprofessional? Who may I exclude from my branding language or definition of luxury? I hear often people are like, I want to work with luxury clients. I want to work with luxury, who's excluded from this? Okay. What does that even mean when you're saying luxury? I'm trying to reframe that term here because there's so much more that is deeply rooted with luxury. And luxury is an experience. Luxury can be relational. It doesn't have to just be an abundance of flowers and all that, because I put the picture and that's gorgeous, right? But let's be honest and real. We're moving to a different price point and bracket. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But we got to be mindful that there are people that are diverse that can still fit within the aesthetics that you're trying to build within um the space of having a um higher marketed financial wedding, right? There's a plethora of people that can fit into that, but we need to be mindful when we say, I want a luxury couple. What are your biases pertaining to that? So, who are we unintentionally excluding when we talk about it? The wedding industry often associates luxury with Eurocentric aesthetics, minimalist styles, Western traditions, certain body types. Because I tell you this right now, anytime I see luxury that is plastered, I don't necessarily see a woman that or a man that is more full figured. I don't. Okay. When I'm seeing quiet and elegance, you're seeing wealth displayed in specific ways, heterosexual couples, traditional relationship structures. Okay. But as I mentioned, the luxury exists across cultures, across communities and identities, So we can even talk about Indian weddings. Man, they are intense, they're beautiful, and there's just so much cultural richness that is there. And somebody may not label that as luxury, but that is luxury, right? So we got to include everyone into that. Can somebody with a disability that is hidden or visible, when we think of luxury, do they fit that? And if they don't, why is it that we don't include it? Because that is luxury. Luxury doesn't have to just be about finances. Okay. So we're going to get into the closing reflections. So, as I mentioned, the inclusive wedding experiences, it begins with self-awareness. It begins with our language, our assumptions, our communication styles, branding, and vendor partnerships. That shapes how the couples feel respected, how they are represented. It is an emotional safety piece, and we make sure that they're being welcomed. The other point that I want to say this before I go to, we have some time for questions after, is I hear all the time that we say we want to create a safe space for our clients, but it's not up to us to determine what safety is for them. We have to give them the room to disclose that, to express that. Because I can't make an assumption and say, oh, because you come into my office or you come on this Zoom call, you're going to automatically feel safe. Just because I put it on the website doesn't mean a thing. You're asking them, what is it that you need to see from me to feel heard, to feel seen? What does safety also look like for you? Because safety for me is completely different than what safety can look for like for someone else. We can think of safety in terms of just physical aspects. There's no fire going on. No one's going to be running up in here trying to do anything to harm me with violence. Safety can also mean emotionally, right? Are you going to be, um, providing me, some people like comfort, nurture, but nurture in a professional way, right? So really asking specifically, how do you need me to show you safety? So the couple should not have to shrink themselves to fit into this industry. You got to meet them where they're at. And the goal is to create a space where couples feel safe enough to fully be themselves. So here are some of the takeaways. So wedding planning is deeply connected to identity, to culture, and also to lived experiences. You cannot have them without it. You have to see your couples for truly who they are in all aspects. Okay. Self-awareness, it helps reduce the bias. It helps reduce the assumptions and the microaggressions. We did all of this work so you can begin the reflection pieces. Because all the time I see people come in and be like, here are some actions. Don't do this and don't do that. But I'm like, it's easier said than done. You got to start from your foundation of how you even got here in the first place. If you understand your intersections, you are now going to be able to put the glasses on and see that your couples also are intersecting too in this dynamic, right? The other part, the emotional safety, as I mentioned, is determined by the couple, not the planner. The inclusive communication, it builds trust and stronger client experiences. So, how are you displaying inclusivity right off the bat? So, as I mentioned, the couples automatically see on your website if they're going to want to work with you. All right, you did that, they came to you. What do you do after the fact to ensure that that's consistent throughout? How are you going to be sending your emails? How are you allowing the family dynamics to be, um, you know, flourishing in their traditions? Are you accepting of those roles? What does the branding, language, and vendor partnerships, all communication, who belongs there, right? So really going through your vendors list again and the people you refer, do you even check to see who they are? Are we just picking them up because, okay, I know they do good work, but there's more to that. It's an experience that we're providing. And inclusivity is an ongoing relational practice, not just a marketing statement. Okay. So don't just plaster DEI And you want to make sure that you put out the full language there too, what it really stands for: diversity, equity, and inclusion. That adds so much more meaning when you say it fully and loudly. Okay. And what are you doing to ensure that you are aligned and authentically walking within that? So we have 15 minutes to just chat if you want to kind of just go through some of the things that I've talked about. If you have some questions, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Ooh. All right. So I'm going to just go into the chat because I think I missed some things here. But yeah, if you have any questions, like please, like just jump on and you raise your hands and I'm happy to answer. But I missed some here. There's someone says, I have been in the industry since 1992. I don't bow down to anyone or anything. Love that. And that is extravagant travels. Oh, there you are on the screen. Hello. You have a question?
Hi,
Yes.
how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I am
Oh, kind
blessed.
of.
I woke up this morning.
I know that's right. That's so good. I'm glad. We're all made it so far. So yes, I see you said like you've been in the industry for from 1992. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment there. What got you to that point of, you know, for you to be so confident and, so sure about who you are? And was that the same when you first entered, or did that kind of shift over time?
Well, when I first entered in 1992, it was a different era,
Yeah.
but a lot of it had to do with how my upbringing, my parents, my
Mm,
grandmother, you always hold your head up high. You always treat people with respect,
mm,
and you never bow down to anyone. You
mhm.
are your queen. You are your worth. And you prove to them who you are. And that just sets the pace.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you're bringing in generations of, that language, of that safety, of that comfort, of that encouragement and empowerment into who you are, right? And I think that is something that's going to help you to connect with the couples that you work with. And really for everybody here too, reflecting on who mostly comes to you, right? Who are the couples that gravitate towards you the most? And you know, they come with also their own generation of hurt and potentially pain. There's a lot of family dynamic and conflict that happens, and they're trying to break those patterns. And we have to be mindful of how we can support them through it. Now, you're not a therapist, okay? Some of you might be on here that are therapists. Hey, my fellow therapists, but you're not a therapist, okay? you know, you can still be therapeutic. You can still allow that person to have space, to slow things down, to let them know that, hey, I'm here for you. How can I make this transition smoother? What is it that you need from me? Because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of planning and just people are overwhelmed with this process, but you creating that space is going to be helpful. And you just sharing that is helping them to connect with you more. So what's your name? Is it Mel?
Thank you. I mean, Melda.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Melda. I really appreciate that. And then
Yeah,
Jack, oh, sorry.
you're so welcome. You mentioned about we're not, I'm sorry. You mentioned about not being a therapist. It's funny. I was a reporter reported on me years ago. And one of the things that I said that, sometimes I have to be a therapist. And it's true. Right now, I have a bride who lost her mom. And she's part from her dad, and the groom lost his mother.
Mm,
So she really doesn't have anyone, you
yeah.
know. So I am like not her mother, but
Mm,
she appreciates me stepping in and somewhat guiding her as a mother figure.
yes. Yes. Beautiful, right? And you knowing the history and everything between them, the relationship, that's showing that she trusts you and that she's connecting with you. Okay. Now, I will say this too, ensuring that you are also allowing yourself to have moments for yourself, right? You don't want to burn out because being in that emotional role can be a lot to take on. So you can still do it, but also I tell wedding pros, have a resource list available of local wellness providers in your area. You
Mm-hmm.
have, and you can just have this readily available. You say this list has, all the licensed mental health counselors that are in the area. This list has massage therapists that are in your area, somatic workers in your area, financial advisors in your area, lawyers in your area, people that do insurance. So that way they don't have to do that extra work of
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And sometimes they may not even know that they actually needed that support until they see that list with all that information on there. So that is something that you can use. I can send that to Shelby. I have a template that I can send to you guys, and you can shift it to make it your own. Okay. So that is a free resource that I have, and you can just add in your logo onto it and whatever, and you just make it how you want to make it to put that information in. And you can just provide that to all of the people you work with. So that way they feel completely supported throughout this entire process. So they have you that they can get support from, but also the designated people that it can get, their wellness. Okay. So Melda, thank you so much. I'm gonna go through some of the other comments here too. So Jacqueline, she said it took me years to set the right boundaries. And then also she said the professionals I work with has to be more than just the beauty of their work. Beautiful, right? And there's a pattern that's taking place because I really want to know from people that are just starting off right now. And I'm seeing the difference between people that have been in this industry for a while. They're a lot more like steady in who they are. And they're saying it took them years to get here. But I'm curious to know about people that are just starting off. Like, where are you? Where are you guys at? Are you feeling the same way, or are you feeling like you're still trying to figure it out? All right, maybe not. Okay. And that's okay. We're gonna go on to the next comment. But Jacqueline, I appreciate you sharing that. And then somebody said the same with Nigerian weddings. I'm sorry. I know that I didn't get a chance to look at the chat during the presentation, so I'm going back. Thelma, I think she probably mentioned that when I talked about Indian weddings, but you probably mentioned with the Nigerian weddings too. So Thelma, you said as a Black woman born in London and raised the way I was, I honestly go towards all people. It doesn't matter to me. I am diverse and feel confident in who I am. Beautiful. Also recognize who comes to you too. So even though you may go to all people, is that reflective of the demographic that is working with you? All right. And what is your demographic telling you about? And if you're saying, okay, I'm only predominantly seeing Hispanic couples, but I want to see more diverse couples, well, maybe there's something I need to shift and adjust in terms of my marketing, right? How do I get to expand in that way? But if you don't want to do that, that's okay. Because there's some times where you're just like, I just want to have my niche and I support this demographic too. But you still want to be open because you don't want to turn away services. That's when it becomes a problem. If you're purposely turning away people, that's when you need to adjust. Okay. Um, Melda, she said, I treat everyone the same. I don't believe in putting labels on my clients because I don't want anyone putting my business in one category. Yes. Lewis, excellent information being shared. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you for a great presentation. Please do share the template. Will do. Great presentation, much needed information. I haven't really gotten started because I'm still trying to figure it out. Ooh, girl, Brenda, I want to hear from you. I haven't really gotten started because I'm still trying to figure it out. What do you mean by gotten started? What parts? Where are you trying to start from? I don't know if you want to type it in the chat or no pressure. No pressure. Okay. The beginning. I am scared. So are you saying that like you're just, coming into this industry? Like you're still trying to finish off your certificate? Is that where you're at? I think maybe that's what you're meaning. Oh, you guys are so welcome.
I think she's just starting in her business.
Oh, she's just starting in your business.
I think that's what it is.
It is. Okay. Yes, it's honestly, no amount of advice is going to prepare you for what you will embark on. Um, you just have to trust in your gut and know that you are capable. All your life, you've had challenges that you've been able to move forward in, accomplish, and you've learned how to pivot. You can do the same in regards to your business. Okay. You have those strengths, you rely on it, and you will do well. So she said, I'm finished the certificate, still have to get my business license. And I have not really planned any weddings except my own, and I don't really know how to start. So if there's anybody, that could support her, because honestly, Brenda, I really appreciate you sharing this and opening up. You have a wealth of knowledge in this Zoom call right now. So if anybody, may want to reach out to her so that way she can get a little bit of extra support, that would be great. And Brenda too, like reach out. You have Shelby, you have McCall on the call, reach out to them too, and they can be able to support as well. This is why this community exists, so you don't feel alone, right? And then but yes, I really appreciate you for sharing that, Brenda. You're gonna do just fine. I'm telling you, all business owners feel the exact same way when they first start out. Okay. I was not where I was. I started out with my business a year and a half ago. Okay. When I first started, I was stressed. I was I was doing, but you figure it out. Okay. You take it one step at a time and you have got supports. So Jacqueline said, thank you, Anansa, for being transparent. The advice you just shared with Brenda is on point. Oh, I appreciate you, y'all. Okay, this has prompted some inner observations to sit with, much needed and appreciated. Where is she located? Yeah, Brenda, where are you located? You got people inquiring. I'm always happy to support in any way. Brenda, let's set up time to talk. Thank you for sharing. Brenda, same here. Let's connect and support each other. Look at community. You see? You got community right here, ready to jump in. Okay, she's in Phoenix. So if anybody's in the local area in Phoenix, reach out to her. But thankfully, we got, technology. So Zoom calls, phone calls. Use that as your resources. Okay. All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining today's presentation. I truly appreciate your time. If you guys do have any questions for me, you can always reach out to me. It's at info@ido-therapy.com. But yes, thank you, Shelby. Thank you, McCole, for, having me. And yeah, I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. This was amazing, very informative, and just what we needed. I appreciate your saying yes from the very beginning and being so easy to work with. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending, and I'll see you on the 20th. Thank you. Bye.